How is Legacy this good? I ask you. Everyone took one look at it back when it was revealed and thought it was going to be crap because it looked like it was going to suck. It looked so half-assed, and then everything was excellent. Legacy Wave 1 is now one of the best first waves of all time. Its worst figures are solid, and its best figures are amazing. This line is coming with a baseball bat for Siege's throne of being the best Transformers line ever. If all the waves after this one are this good, it will sit on top of the throne of bodies of the War for Cybertron line as King of the Hill. Kingdom and Siege have some real competition coming. And I've saved one of its best for last. Perhaps it was a little bit of hubris to hope to gain 3,000 subscribers in just 3 months, or just the fact that I'm really bad at math. But I'm still trying to hit 10k subs by August 8th. If you enjoyed this video by the end, please consider subscribing. Legacy Dragstrip. This is one yellow son of a bitch. Like, dear God, does he need some accent colors. He's yellow, 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 off yellow, and red, and barely anything is the red. Did whatever idiot back in G1 who designed this guy ever hear of color theory? Red and yellow don't complement each other. In fact, they might only serve to make him even more boring looking. You couldn't have spiced this guy up just a little bit, Hasbro? And before anyone says that it wouldn't be G1, you know what's also not G1? These weird epaulet pieces framing his head, and the fact that his toes aren't mustard colored. There is so much not anything going on with this guy's paint job, you really couldn't spare the brush for one of the only details this boring-ass character gets. All that said though, this actually does a solid job in the looks department. They've done just enough to stop me from dying of boredom from looking at this guy by tweaking the sculpt. He's got these new mufflers built into his shins, the wrist bracers, his chest is given more dimension and flipped the not stupid way around, the build is a little stocky but just lithe enough to look like a guy who can go fast. You can technically flip out his shoulder spoiler for what I think is a much cooler look, though it does interfere with his articulation. You can, however, adjust that to your heart's content. I think the worst thing going on here is the fat gaps in the sides of his knees. I know that it's asking a lot of this figure to have a good transformation, a good set of modes, and an automorph split in half, but come on, there had to be something you could have done about this. I mean, even if it was just Hasbro sculpting these parts so they looked like anything other than the struts inside of a toy. I don't think that's too much to ask. And the side tires being these ugly angled squares is a little odd. Plus, I'm not normally someone who complains about split peg tires, and on the legs, I'm not going to. They hide just fine. But the bright yellow peg coming through the pitch black tires is both obvious and ugly as sin. They are as obnoxious as hearing me complain about them is. You might think that I'm struggling for things to talk about, and you'd be right. What am I supposed to say about this incredibly boring dude? Normally, I'm struggling to condense everything I want to bring up down to 10 minutes. This time, I'm like, how do I blow this up to 2? He's just a neon yellow blob of character I don't give a shit about. You know me, I don't like the Stunticons, and this dude is just every reason why. He's doing a lot better than a straight G1 version would because that design was everything wrong with the 84 designs, crushed down with all of the force of a black hole into a single effigy to yawn. This is cooler than that by leagues and miles. So cool, in fact, it becomes okay looking. It's decent. There's nothing to talk about! Question of the video, what do you think I could have stood really going more into on this figure? He feels great, all the joints are well toleranced, and the posing feels creamy. He's got like 8 siege ports, which is more than a lot of them, though 6 of them are on his backside, with 1 on the backs of his calves, and these ones right here aren't ones. Even though if they were just a tiny bit tighter, they would hold just fine as some. But that's really pretty much all I have to say. Paint job is a little soft looking, the details could stand to be a little more crisp. He's not very gappy, just minor bits here or there. Look, the most interesting thing about this guy is the head. What is this flat-faced, brick-chinned, square-headed Frankenstein bullshit? This is not what the character's head looked like, at all. This looks like bad cosplay. This looks like Robert Zadar doing bad cosplay. I'm glad his face is silver and not blue because that was always weird and ugly, but his head just should have been a very different shape. It should have been more rounded like the G1, or, I can't believe I'm saying this, more like the Dreamwave design. Seriously, look at that. It's a lot cooler. It's Dreamwave. Hell has frozen over. Also, because of the transformation trying to get cheeky, the back of the head is clearly empty with no brain in it. There's at least one thing I can think of them doing to fix this, but this is much better than the Legacy Hot Rod because the dark colors really helps to mask the hollowness. As much as I just bitched about this guy's appearance, that's really only because that's what I thought I could make interesting talking about this. It looks good, I like it, it's just not inspiring in any way, shape, or form. Dear God, can I not think of anything to say when I'm looking at it, other than the most insubstantial observations imaginable? Like the crotch he has looks a little familiar. Is that Mirage's dick? Dear God, this is the worst G1 design. How does he have no crotch? Why did I only just realize this now because of this figure's pants? Accessories are pretty good, but weirdly enough, he doesn't come with the Energon weapon that I thought was this whole line's thing. Instead, he's got 2 identical guns. These seem to be cast in black and then painted a nice metallic purple. You know me, shiny thing good. Now where was this purple on everything else? Do you have any idea how much better this guy would look with some purple biceps and accents? They can peg together to be a dumber gun, which can't fit on the alt mode, and the scopes on them are 5mm pegs, so you can have him carrying them by the scopes. I'm sure that this is just great for him. Not risking damage to your ability to aim with these at all. Who am I kidding? These are pistols. Why do they have sniper scopes on them? Here, let me just take a 1,000-yard pistol shot, watch the Coriolis effect. I guess I can pad this out a little by talking about gimmicks. He has this slot in his back, and if you press that in, you can get him to do his movie jazz cosplay. Posability on this guy is pretty decent. Head only swivels, but you can fake a really bad tilt down. Like a really, really bad tilt down. Shoulders pull a 90, though it does move the epaulets. Slightly more than 90 elbows, no wrist. It's impressive they figured out a waist on this with the torso detaching right there. Completely unimpeded hips, normal 90 knees with really short Combiner Wars Devastator thighs, and feet with massive tilt down and a massive rocker. He is probably slightly below average on the posing front thanks to the head and the lack of wrists, but everywhere else is solid, and the build makes that feel better than it probably is. Much like with the kickback, this guy just wants to work with you. Going from slightly below average to incredibly above average, the transformation on this guy is a blast. It's tons better going into vehicle mode, as getting it started going to robot is quite hard because of the way everything locks together. But it's fast, unique, clever, doing stuff you rarely see. It unfortunately partakes in some slight faux forming that doesn't even have the decency to hide away all that well, and some of the ideas feel like they weren't quite finished. Like, I love that they tried to make the head the driver's seat for his alt mode, but they didn't put it in a way that integrates into the transformation. So his dome is just kind of floating there in an open void with nothing really making it look like they want it to, except for your imagination. Like, the sides really needed to close in around this part. And then it's way too small. The fake engine is clearly sitting in front of the supposed driver's seat. There's no steering wheel, which they could have just easily molded in, and then the robot mode's head is compromised by having it be like this. The feature was a great idea. Needed some work though. Like, I could accept all of this if the seat just kind of flipped up in robot mode to hide the gap in his head, or I could accept the back of his head was hollow if it was just integrated properly. But it's none of the things, so it's kind of all of the problems. I want to know how an upgrade kit is going to fix this. But overall, the resulting alt mode is very good. It could tab together a bit better in these spots, but the look of the robot mode is a lot more excusable here because it winds up a lot more attractive in this mode, especially with the weapons integrated. Though the peg tires are also more on display, and like I said, I wouldn't normally complain about these, but this is an excessively bad instance of the feature. Overall, I think that this is far more successful at its weird six-wheeled Formula 1 car than either version of Mirage in the War for Cybertron. Both those figures feel like they really compromised to wrangle their alt modes out of them, which is what I suppose feels so impressive about this. It doesn't feel compromised. There are obviously a few flaws, like the head being too small for its place in the alt mode, but nothing about this is insurmountable. It doesn't have wrists because they just didn't, but they could have with ease. The head could have been on a joint that would make it capable of looking down, but they just chose not to. Its problems would be so easily overcome, you just question why they didn't bother to, because that's what it feels like. They knew they did good enough, so they just stopped at some point. Which you'd think would really piss me off, but they did in fact hit the point where it was already really good, and I do think we absolutely deserved to have them keep trying, like why is this joint and this part not painted? But at the same time, I can't fault them for thinking, yeah, this is good enough to sell. It looks pretty much exactly right in this mode, and I have one last transformation step to go through with you guys so I can show you his combined mode. Riveting. I had a lot of negative to say this time, but honestly, this figure, bafflingly enough, I think is one of the best ones of the wave. He doesn't look super inspiring to me, but I mean, it's Legacy Wave 1. He's going up against skids for God's sake. His competition is kind of handicapped in their attempts to be memorable. That's not to say he sucks. Hell, maybe you like his look a lot better than I do. I'm not the best judge this time because you know me and he's a Stunticon. His accessories are kind of chunked here in this line where accessories have for the most part taken a forefront on a lot of the figures. I think RC is the only one with accessories that are for sure worse than this. And these are good by accessory standards. A pair of dual painted pistols, pretty cool. These are just up against a shield that forms a machine gun nest. Posability is nothing special, slightly less than you'd hope for, but at the very least costing the minimum of what you need. And the build just makes articulating it really enjoyable. I rewrote that several times trying my best to make it sound like it wasn't a dick reference. I don't think I succeeded. What I think this guy really sells himself to me on is the transformation. That part is top notch. Love the way it works. So different and interesting. And the alt mode is really good. Probably better looking than the robot mode, with a promised combined mode that is somehow getting me hyped. That's unique. I know I'm doing a terrible job selling this figure, which I think is quite good, and despite all my expectations, I really like this a lot. But you know what? I'm not here to make you spend money. If you thought this looked fun before you ever saw this video, I think you'd enjoy it. I don't know why I'm so bad at recommending this one. I like it. If you like the things that I like, then you will probably like this one like me. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know you know what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.